Good evening. May I have your attention, please? This is the Laredo Independent School District Board of Trustees Board Workshop. Today is April the 30th. It is now 5:39. We're meeting at the Amber Yeary Boardroom, 1620 Houston. Roll call, please, Mr. Garza.
Yes, sir. Mr. Jesus Martinez.
Present.
Mr. Jose Valdez.
Present.
Mr. Ricardo Garza, present. Mr. Hector Nayola. Dr. Celia May Moreno. Mr. Hector Garcia. Mr. Sarah Perez. Absent.
Okay, pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Dr. Nelson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Our item for tonight, for the record, is discussion and presentation on the 2015-2016 budget. We specifically wanted to go over several aspects of our budget planning, including the timeline for completing the budget process, a brief overview of our estimated revenues and expenditures. We would like to have a conversation with our board regarding stipends, particularly athletics coaches stipends for next year, and a proposal we have to address that initiative. An update on our pay plan process. We also would like to go over some salary proposals as we've been doing over the last few months. And then last, we would like to have just a brief update on the 84th legislative session and the activities we anticipate will be occurring between now and the end of the legislative session in June. If we may begin, as you know, our timeline, we're on schedule to bring a balanced or possibly surplus budget to the board at the end of March, where we would adopt a budget and tax rate for the 15-16 school year. We've been meeting diligently. You please watch your calendars for the month of June and May, because we're really trying to make sure we keep our conversations going, but pretty much have meetings just about every night in May and in the first 2 weeks of June. But we've scheduled budget workshops accordingly to make sure we've moved them around, but we will continue those meetings. If there's no other questions on the timeline, if you turn to page 3 of our PowerPoint, we have for the public the estimated revenues and expenditures. One of the things we wanted to just briefly emphasize is that because of the outstanding leadership by our finance department, we have identified a proposal that we believe, based on our revenues and expenditures, we have found funds for our capital improvement plan, which was not in the budget last year, and we committed to putting that in for the future, so that's there, as well as the discretionary funds. And so both of those, as you know, when we brought the budget for 14-15, did not include that, and our commitment was to make sure that that's no longer necessary to go through any type of fund balance or savings, or it's part of the budget now. And you see the evidence of those changes between all of our total revenues and other resources, what we've done with debt service, and how we plan to cover that. Are there any questions about that? If there's not, then I would bring your attention to the conversation we like to have for stipends. I'm going to ask Ms. Rodriguez to hand out this document. I'm going to ask Renee Ramirez to go to the podium. And here's the short version of what we're handing you. This is not the first time you've seen this. We've actually given this to you over a month ago, but the top page will serve as a framework for our proposal. The bottom line is this. We have heard from the board loud and clear, actually, that the board as a whole wants to be more competitive in our athletic coaching stipends. And we've been working on that. I've actually heard comments like we want to have stipends that are more than our neighboring district, and we haven't brought that to you yet, but we do have a $248,000 idea that we feel like will make us equal to United in our coaching stipends. So as you can tell from the cover page of the document, and the second, third, and fourth page are just supporting documentation for questions we thought you might ask. But on the top page, you see we currently spend $949,000 in stipends, and our neighboring district spends $1.1 million in stipends. So the difference for us is approximately $248,000. What we would like to propose to the board is that we adjust our Board of Trustees discretionary accounts, reduce it by $248,000 to move that money to our athletic coaching stipends. It would still leave approximately, más o menos, $40,000 for each trustee on their discretionary funds. And you'll see as we go through the rest of this meeting, we still have things like salaries and other things that we want to make sure we also look at. So that's our proposal at this time. I visited with a few of the trustees about the idea, and it would basically just be, instead of each trustee having $75,000, it would go to $40,000 annually. So we're interested in getting some feedback or answering any comments or questions that the trustees have on that.
Mr. Valdez?
Yeah. What you mean is that not each trustee, but the schools will have less money that they have been getting from this account. This is something we need to look at, because the trustees' monies, the discretionary monies, have been used very, very wisely. They're all approved expenditures, and there are requests from our employees for those activities that are not covered automatically within our budgets. And I'll give you just one quick example, and then we can go on. The shirts and all the equipment and things that we purchased for the Special Olympics, that wasn't happening last year, okay? If we reduce that, you can kiss that goodbye next year, and I don't want to do that.
That's not true.
So let's keep that in abeyance, okay?
Mr. Garza?
Yeah, to a certain extent, that I'm in agreement with that. The only thing from my perspective, a lot of the things that I guess from my fund was going towards things that could have been easily pushed forward to the capital improvement plan.
Sure.
So, and I'm in agreement as long as we look at all of these items in terms of, I know there's certain things that we've done, the marquees, the setting up some other equipment for some of the campuses that would easily go under another fund, that we could easily say, oh, we'll get it from that fund, rather than us going directly to the campus and saying, we'll get it off of my discretionary fund. We could have pushed it over to that side. So I know exactly what Mr. Valdez is saying. I don't want to hurt the kids by doing this, but I know that if we up front we can figure out a way to get those monies out of another fund rather than discretionary fund. I think we should at least take a good look at that option that you're proposing right now.
Mr. Garcia?
I know when we created this 2 years ago, there was a lot of need. As Mr. Valdez said, we had a lot of needs within the district that we weren't addressing. I've seen in the last since we put this fund together, and we've been studying our numbers a lot better, and I see that we're allocating money to places that we were giving money, at least in my district. Right now, we're going to the end of the year, and I still have, I think, $40,000 left in my account. And anybody in my district within my area has asked, and I give them but I've got to the point that, you know what, the district is already supplying them with what we were buying at the very beginning, that they don't need them anymore. They don't need that money anymore because they've already gotten the shirts, they already gotten the extra equipment, they already got so I think I think if it's gonna benefit the teacher, I don't have a problem with it, as long as we make sure that everything that some of the stuff that we were buying with our money, that the district is picking up through other funds or through
Like
capital improvement or something like that, I don't have a problem.
Like special ed shirts. Absolutely.
Dr. Moreno?
Did we match the days on these or just the salaries?
Mr. Ramirez?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Dr. Moreno.
We match the days, the extra days?
The only one that we're looking at, ma'am, to match the days would be the assistant tennis coach. Everything else is already matching.
It's already matched.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but that assistant, you didn't figure that cost in there, right?
No, ma'am, because I don't, it depends on the years of experience.
Because you're suggesting we reduce that amount?
Yes, because right now, our assistant coaches, we only have, if I may,
But we can't reduce if we're not gonna increase the days.
they don't have, as far as LISD has 10 days for the assistant coach, and the UISD has 15 days.
Right, so if you're gonna reduce the stipend, then you have to increase the days.
Correct, ma'am.
This is not about going backwards.
I agree.
And is this not, I'm sorry.
Okay, have we finished with the discretionary funds discussion? No?
Just to say on
Can we
one
go
last
into
point,
that first?
one last point with that
Okay.
issue is that I'm pretty proud of the fact that I've had discussions with other board members, and we've been cooperating, all of us together, even in putting monies together
Helping each
for
other.
our non-district schools. And like, and they're not in my district. I've already helped out McDonald
Yes. McDonald's, yes, thank you.
and J.C. Martin and Santa Maria and all. I have zero problem with that. So if we can bunch it up like that in order that we may accomplish something like this, like I said, if we take a good look at it and we tie it up nicely, then I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, let me just say a couple of words. These funds are not ours. They're the kids. They're the schools that we look over. And the teachers or the principals come over to us and ask us directly because they don't have any funds and there are things that they need. So it is our responsibility to help them. Now, it's either we spend it or we give it back to the district. Yeah, but the thing is, I think we can help with in our discretion. I don't mind helping the teachers. Our fifth graders are going to Austin to visit the Capitol and be with Mr. Raymond and know a little bit more about government. That's part of my spending that I think it's good, and I think the fifth graders are getting a lot out of it. Plus, they're getting some trees, plus they're getting some things that are beneficial, and they don't have to go directly to the district. So I think I'm happy with the 75,000. And if we don't spend it, we return it to the extent.
Let me,
I just-
may I say, oh,
Mr. Garcia, go ahead, please.
I'm going to this.
Yes, sir.
Like I already made a comment on that. You know what? To me, it really doesn't one way or the other. If they don't spend my money, and I'm open to everybody because I really helped out whoever called me that discretionary fund. But this is not a true picture. But I know that in campus coordinator, it's not 3 years. You're just saying 3 of the 5 they have. Because
Yes,
they
sir.
have more schools than we
It's-
have. 24, they have more coaches.
No, sir, what I did is I compared it to whatever a coach is making. So if it's the United, it doesn't matter which school it is, but it's just United and LISD. That's it. The totals that you see there for,
They're not
let's go
their
with
totals.
campus coordinator,
I see what you're saying.
right?
Yeah, because we have 3 campus coordinators, they have 4.
Yes, sir, but I didn't.
Right, but
I-
if you try to compare apples to apples, you'd only take 3 of theirs.
That's all I did.
You see what
And you're
I'm
an
saying?
I didn't go with the
assistant
fourth.
coach, because it's not true, because assistant coaches, varsity assistant, we have 12, we're
They
saying
have
12, they have 20 something.
Way more, right.
That's
But we
correct,
only
sir.
use 12.
But I didn't add their 24 or whatever they had. All I did is.
Because then it would have made it look like they're
Yeah, it would
way
have
up
been
here.
a big
and we're-
difference from ours.
No, but I like to see, what I wish I would have seen is, you know what, at LISD, assistant coaches we have per school 6. UISD has 10. So it doesn't matter that, they still have, you can give them the money, but they still have 4 more coaches than you do.
Well, and I respect that. May I respond, Mr. President?
Just a minute, sir. Mr. Valdez, do you still have something on the
yes,
discretionary funds?
I'm sorry we got sidetracked there because somebody wanted to raid our kitty.
Yes, sir, Mr. Wallace.
Yes.
And we'll find you the 248,000, okay? I mean, I've got 38 years of experience in this type of things, you know, so we'll find it if they can't. And it'll be on the transparency website. But the issue here is we need to come up with 248,000 to equal what the other district is paying right now, but
That is correct, sir.
but we have a little problem here. They are probably going to up what they've got there. And I say we need to find out what they're planning so that we can pay the same thing. I don't have any problems with any of that. Every year we come up here that we're starving and all of that, you know, and then in the end we come up with a fund balance that we were not even expecting. But coming back to this, another thing is, I do want to put a little punch on that discretionary fund. People are asking us for things that are supposed to be paid from capital improvements, and I'll give you, well, from emergency or whatever. I'll give you one quick example. There's a school, I won't mention it because it's a little bit embarrassing, that has a need for an emergency door, okay? I already discussed this with Josie, okay? We're talking about $8,000 or $9,000. And they went through the regular channels, they can't get it, and of course they're starting to call us. And what we need to do is have a little meeting here, and those activities need to be addressed immediately from a regular account, okay? We have those problems. Coming back to this,
Yes, sir.
I think the issue right now is we need at least $248,000, okay? Put a little notation in there, we need 248, okay? We'll see where we get that money from, and additional monies, okay? Because what would you say? Say a 3% increase or 5% increase. In other words, we need to come up with an estimate so that we can do some budgeting here. An estimate, say another, maybe 10% on the 248,000, which would be another $24,000. Just in case, you know, you can put that in on the side there, and then we'll see what they come up with over there, and we'll match them. We want our people to be paid the same. I think we play better anyway.
Let me just clarify this, the 949,300,
It's what we're presently paying right now, sir.
are we giving those right now or not?
That's present, sir. Yes, sir. That's correct.
That's what they're getting?
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
Mr. President, can I respond to something?
Yes, I'm sorry, Dr. Nelson,
Okay.
go ahead, sir.
So first of all, if we go back to Mr. Garcia's point, which I thought was a great point for us to look at, this is really just addressing the fiscal concern. The equity in numbers, we'd be glad to have that conversation, but that's additional FTEs, that's a whole nother discussion that the board could have. This is really a response to, we got coaches right now that are considering leaving. For the record, we also are trying to recruit some coaches.
That's correct.
And so this is a conversation that we're wanting to make some decisions on right away. Having said that, to respond to Mr. Valdez's points, and I mean this with the highest level of respect, first of all, this is not our idea to, if I may be quoted, quote you, rob from your kitty. It's not. We're just saying that the discretionary account that is $525,000 is a significant amount of money. The board has been good stewards of it. You've done a great job with it. I'm very proud of my office, because my executive assistant has coordinated this entire process with the entire school district. So people call her, people call you, and we do it all through finance in a way where the budgets are amended, and we're proud to do it. We would do it anytime. Having said that, if we could just shave a little bit off of it, we'd anticipate each trustee will still have plenty of opportunities to support those who come and want to create innovative ideas. The situation about the door, I would build a strong case. I applaud the principal for speaking to the board about the door, because it is an emergency. Now, we can fund it. Now, if the board wants to move it up in the capital improvement plan, we have it funded for another year. But if that principal goes to a board member and the board member wants to take their discretionary and move it up in the capital improvement plan, then so be it. That's what we have a capital improvement plan for.
Right.
But that door is not like you made the statement, came to staff and staff didn't do it. Well, that's misleading. I mean, we want a safe door too. We want to do all the ideas. The board president mentioned trips. That's a great idea for the discretionary funds.
Okay.
But we have these, teachers will still have the opportunities to be creative with the trustees, and trustees will still have the opportunity to pay. Mr. Garcia made a statement, things like special ed shirts, or Mr. Garza, I think, excuse me. You're right, that shouldn't even come through discretionary. We can allocate for that next year. Now, we did it this year because they needed them by this week. They had the Special Olympics this week, so they needed that. But our commitment is the same. We're not against getting our special ed children shirts. We want to get them the same shirts you want to get them. So I understand the sensitivity about reducing the discretionary budget, but I want to speak on behalf of all the departments, and we can show it however you want to see it, but we're all trying to make cutbacks. We're all trying to reduce our budgets, and this is just one situation, one scenario that we're trying to fund. We haven't even got to what I believe most of our friends and colleagues that are here for is salaries. I agree. We hadn't talked about the legislative update, and we're not in a state of emergency. Last thing I'll say, and I'll turn it back over to the board, is with all due respect to United, they don't drive our leadership. We don't make decisions based on United. We applaud them. We collaborate with them. We partner with them. We support them. We believe in our partnership. But no, we're not going to go ask them what they're going to do for stipends. They're not going to tell us anyway, with all due respect. They won't. We've tried. We've tried to ask them, what changes are you going to make in your salaries? If we make this change in our stipends, of course they'll probably make a change. That's the way it works. Then we'll make a change. So I just want to be clear with everybody, that's how the situation works. So it's the will of the board.
Mr. Valdez?
Yeah. First of all, I want to clarify a couple of things here. No principal called me. I got an email from other people, okay? I want to make that very clear because some of these people then later are talked to. No principal called me. I also sent out the word, don't call me anymore because you're going to get it. And they've been getting it. Okay, that's one. The other one is this. The issue here is really finding these monies. Looking at the whole budget, okay? And sometimes we feel that like we can get it from here, and keep this in mind, okay? All of these monies here are being spent with our employees and our students. Monies for projects that were not thought of before. And it's not just the Special Olympics. A lot of other expenses that are being covered. But coming back to this, the issue is $248,000. Let's deal with this in a budgetary manner, all right?
Yes, sir.
And
Point well taken.
that's it. Vámonos.
Okay, Dr. Moreno?
Yes. Okay, first, for sure, I want to be sure that the numbers are matching the extra days.
We'll go back and,
It's
yes.
not in front of us, some of it is in front of us to be able to compare, but not all of it, so.
Yeah, we'll go line by
How much
line.
are the extra days much?
Yes, ma'am.
Plus, if a person gets an additional sport, do we have a position on how many sports they can coach, or we don't?
My answer, yes, ma'am. We're looking at trying to ask every coach to coach more than one sport, ma'am. So we're looking at doing 2 sports. Every coach needs to do 2 sports.
And the other thing is, if somebody chooses to do a third sport, do they get the complete stipend for the third sport?
That's correct, ma'am.
If the board picks up the 248 and there's costs involved with the extra days, those will be picked up by the budget,
I support that.
okay? You all will pick up any of the extra days, including the ones for the tennis, assistant tennis, and we'll pick up if the board votes to pick up.
If the board,
stipend.
yes, that's fair.
Mr. Garza?
Creative.
No, Mr. Garcia was next, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Real
Garcia?
quick, and I also like to see before we decide that a report card on our springs, or there's, I mean, I know that, you know what, everybody deserves, but when the numbers are not there, where coaches not producing, when students are not coming out, then there's something, and I don't see rewarding athletic programs that are not doing anything. I was very disappointed with the majority of our spring sports. And if we're not producing, then why are we even looking at this? There's coaches that, you know what, the year after year successful, there's something, you know what, they just go through I see it, we're going through the motions. And we shouldn't have to scratching our head here saying, you know what, why are we going to find money for people that are not putting in the time that it takes to be productive? We expect that from all our teachers. We should expect it from everybody across the board.
I agree, Mr.
And
Garcia.
that's the only thing that I would say that we look into it. I don't have a problem with, I'll give up my 75,000 completely if you want it. You can have it. I don't.
Is that a motion?
Dámelo para acá.
If you all need help, I really have. I've just told my principals.
Let's hear from Mr. Garza. Okay,
go ahead,
Dr. Moreno, go ahead, ma'am.
I'm going to speak to
The
that.
thing that's important is the number of participants in these activities.
Right.
Because
That's
we've
correct.
really been trying to promote student participation. And if one of these sports has 3 or 4 kids in the program, that's not
Productive.
gathering student participation.
Right.
So
correct, ma'am.
there has to be significant, number of students participating because we care about having the participation of the part of the students.
Real quick, we challenged the bands to do that,
They
and
did.
I can tell you, I went to the football game. Martin, Figueroa, and Nixon, all 3 schools had almost not double, but close to double their enrollment in band program, and you can see that. And that's what you want to see. We gave money to our cheerleaders. You know what? They're performing now, and now you don't see 3 cheerleaders, you see 20 cheerleaders, and because we're participating, that's what we want to see.
So that's where I was headed with my
Mr.
question.
Garza?
I know we established, remember, we've been at it already for a year and a half.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, so this goes right along. This is pretty much the final part of our game plan over a year and a half of planning.
Correct.
Now we're goal-oriented. Now we're going to have data to support what we're trying to do. We were trying to get pipelines in every sport coming in from elementary all the way to high school, and now we have something to build on. My question is did we cover enough on the you have girls soccer and girls softball, which I do. Oh, the question I was going to ask, I know some of the sports, and this is not by choice, I think this is by history, that open gym and the Ciarroa, Martin and Nixon is almost a religious affair. So are we taking care of the coaches because of that? I know they work 365, most of these coaches, so I want to make sure that we take care of them because of that. A lot of times, basketball gets under your skin and they're not asking. But I see that all our 3 programs are doing very well. And I just want to have those monies available for those that are bringing the energy to do something like this. And so it just goes to show that there's no shortcuts in what we're doing here. Hard work is really
Pays
the
off.
basis of our success. And so, and what you're doing here, I see that we're headed in the right direction. I'm not sure if this is going to be an ongoing stipend effect that we're going to say, well, you know what, we couldn't do it all this year. But next year, we're going to look at it again, and we'll continue to move from there.
So the other question I have is, are we
Yes,
adding
Dr.
soccer
Moreno?
and
The middle schools.
cross-country for the middle school?
Yes, ma'am. That's included in there.
That's correct.
And how many sports is the coach
A
supposed to
assistant campus
coach?
coordinator.
2.
2.
2 for
Yes, ma'am.
that stipend?
Middle school?
That's correct, ma'am. One would be for soccer, one would be for cross-country. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mr. Martinez, one more question.
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Nelson, I don't
Yes,
know
sir.
if have we looked at what Mr. Garza was talking, have we looked at possibly creating an assistant campus coordinator that is part of the other part? We have that outdoor, but the indoor, because we do have the indoor volleyball. We have the indoor, and give that position to the principal to make the decision who's going to open up the gym, and let that principal make that decision. So you're not saying you play favoritism with this coach or that, so that the principal makes the decision based on whether the coach is going to handle that summer gym open till 9 o'clock every night.
Well, I think that's definitely something we can look into. We don't have it in this proposal here. I'm wondering, do we pay the coaches to do open gym, or do they just do that out of the goodness of their heart?
All our programs have, it may not be called open gym, but we have basketball has open gym, volleyball has open gym. We have off-season, we do our, as Mr. Garcia is aware, we have our 7-on-7 during the summer. We have the program open, and all our football coaches are working during the summer to make sure our football players are prepared for the following year.
And they're not
We do the
paid.
same thing for, no, sir, it's part of the job.
So
like
I
you
do,
said,
for the record, the staff, I know I'm not speaking for the athletic director, but for the rest of us, we're fine with the stipends the way they are. The reason why we brought this is because you can go back and look at conversations we've had. Trustees asked us to be more competitive with our coaching stipends. So that's where this is coming from. Now, this idea of an assistant campus coordinator, someone to be paid to work our summer programs and coordinate our open gyms, and I'm thinking about working Shirley Field and some of these 7-on-7 things, and we could do that. Because right now, from what I hear, that's all voluntary.
Well, not
Well, it all
necessarily, because
drops
just
under
an
the head
expectation.
coach.
you're paying your head coach or campus coordinator, which is the football coach, you're paying him that, so his responsibility is 7-on-7.
And so you're saying add another person.
Yeah,
Do the indoor, which is your volleyball, your basketball, your
Indoor.
indoor gym stuff.
They
So
get-
I'm not opposed to that. That's kind of like a new stipend for us, or new position. However, it wouldn't be a position.
That's only
but-
because you put all the pressure on the head coaches, because they are the head coaches, to overlook all the assistant coaches and all the programs that are under him. And I think it puts a lot of the burden on them, and the coordinating part that goes along with it. And I think either a stipend position that doesn't have to be a new FTE, or a stipend position where another assistant coach gets a stipend for doing that.
Yeah.
You don't have to create an FTE for
take
it.
the 248 to like 260 or something
Something
like
like
that.
that.
Yeah.
I think the cost will not be so much the stipend as if you have to pay the extra days.
Right.
Because if you select somebody that wasn't hired for the extra days, they're not gonna be working just for a stipend. That's where you have to be careful.
Okay, a couple of concerns. You're saying that we might lose some coaches and we might need to hire some new coaches. Now, do we have any leadway in paying them more than the regular salary? Like if it's a very good coach, quality coach that we might want to attract from somewhere else? Okay, we can do that.
Your idea is applaudable, and it's definitely a way that business has been done several decades ago. But I can tell you now that you just open up a can of worms, and so it's like the whole conversation about participation. I happen to agree with you until a grievance comes. So if a softball coach, I know for a fact our softball coaches worked hard this year. I applaud their effort. I do not accept the outcome.
Yep.
I think our kids can perform at a higher level. So I wouldn't want to take their stipend, for the record, but they didn't perform at the level that they need to perform at. We have some schools, think about cross country. Well, we got some schools where they've got double digits worth of kids out there doing cross country. And so if we're going to set a number, I applaud that, but I just think that if you tie it to whether or not they get their stipend, I just think legally we're kind of opening up a can of worms that would be difficult to support. So I'm not saying we can't do it.
We can look into that.
We can look into it, but
I think what I was saying is that if the school district did its job, the AD's office did their job and providing them the necessary items and the necessary resources to be successful,
Yes, sir.
meaning planning, setting them up for success.
letting them bring their
Then-
coaches.
Then
But
then we can say, hey, you know what, your year, you were given everything you needed to do, but your year was just not there. What else? And that's where the goal-oriented processes that we've established now
And we're
are
looking
coming
at-
into play now, because now you have to go to the elementary level and you have to go to the junior high level to see what your varsity is going to look like in 4 years, 5 years down the line,
Preparing,
6 years down.
like you
the
said, the middle school
And we-
program,
But if-
well, with
I
soccer
want
and cross
to
country.
add
Dr.
one more
Moreno?
comment, yes. The reason we don't hire paraprofessionals to coach is because they make less than minimum wage. These coaches, if you add the hours that they work and the stipends that they get, it's less than minimum wage.
That's
And
right.
that's why we cannot hire paraprofessionals.
Right.
So it may look nice and, looks like a nice incentive, but when you put the number of hours that they put in there to work, it's not even minimum wage.
I agree.
So that's why we have to be careful.
Well, that's why this may be a good start. And I'm just going back to Mr. Valdez, I respect what he's saying. Maybe it's not our idea to take it from where we're proposing, but this concept, we kind of need to get some action on so that number one, so that we can go ahead and explain to people for the fall, coaches, that here's what it's going to be. If we wait and do this in August, or right when we approve the budget, well, coaches are in place. So that's just something for us to think about, and we can discuss it further.
Maybe just a couple of points. Like Mr. Garza says, if we give him everything, if he does not, get winning teams,
To move on.
he's not a good coach. With or without, if we give everybody the same thing, some coaches will come out ahead.
Period.
Okay, some coaches will come out ahead. Now, those are the ones that are proven to be leaders, that are proven that they can motivate the kids, that are proven to be winners. And that's what I'm talking about. If we can get a coach that is applying, or that we know that he might want to be coming to Laredo, we can go and attract him. And if we can get a better stipend to him or a better salary, because he's proven to be. And we know some coaches like that have been coaching in Laredo and are not coaching here now. And so that's one thing that I think we can look into. We can give him all the things that he needs,
Yes, sir.
and at the same time, he might not succeed. Coach Seski from Duke, he's been a super coach throughout the decades.
Correct.
Because he's a super coach. Hire super coaches, not just anybody that applies. We need to have some proof as to how they're doing. One. And Coach, just to clarify, Coach,
Yes, sir.
here in the
No.
campus coordinator, 84,000. What is that?
That's our head football coaches.
I mean, is that the
Campus
salary or
coordinator.
is that the stipend?
No, that's their salary, sir. They
So
don't-
the
that's-
rest of
they
the
don't-
4,500
That is their
underneath?
stipend.
Huh?
That is what they're making, sir. 84,000.
No, but what about the offensive and defensive coordinators?
Remember, they have a teacher's salary, and then you have your stipend of 4,500,
So
and their
then
and
this
15 days.
list, everybody's the stipend here,
It's just a
but the
stipend.
campus coordinator has the salary plus the stipend.
No, so that is their total amount.
I know. But that's
it.
what
That's
this
it.
list-
It's 84,000. That's the
This
average.
list is not just stipends, because one person here has the stipend plus the salary.
Which is everybody below the head football coach.
Everybody below just
football
takes
coach. It's
4,000 or 3,000 or 6,000.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, so it's a little bit,
Because everybody below the head coach is a teacher.
yeah, and the head
Teacher
coach is
salary
not?
plus the stipend plus the days.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
that's-
in other words, what we're saying is this, see, this is called transparency. 84,000 should not be here, because we're talking about stipends, that should be under the salary category. So when you start reducing this amount from the 248,000,
200,000.
see,
But-
when you
but if you look at
when you
it,
start
Mr.
reducing
Valdez,
that, see,
the
from the
reason I was-
248,
Well,
you
we'll
know
take
what I'm
him-
saying, right?
Yes, sir, I do.
In other words, that
And-
should be under salaries, not in this page right here. So
Okay.
if we reduce the $45,000 difference from the 248, now we're talking about 2003 and
Yes.
three and two,
So can we take that from the discretionary?
$203,000. See, we already found 45,000.
That's great. That's great.
Just to share with you,
Totally.
Mr.
We'll
Valdez,
take-
but if you look at it, you're looking at United, and I was asked, and I
No,
and
no,
I did
no.
provide the information.
I understand, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
In
sir,
other
of
words,
course I
that
do.
salary comes from somewhere else, and that's
I
fine.
understand.
We'll cover it.
Yes, sir.
And let me tell you about this thing
go
about
look at it.
United. Whether we like it or not, we're always doing comparability studies.
That's correct, sir.
Of course, they don't drive our budget. We're gonna pay more.
Absolutely.
Mr. Martinez, one more question.
Mr. Garcia?
Mr. Davila will be quoting you on that in a
Yeah,
couple
the
minutes.
The offensive and defensive coordinators, how many classes do they teach?
2 or 4.
How many athletic classes?
How many classes do they teach?
They have the athletic period, and they have a conference period, and they teach the rest of the classes, which
Okay,
is,
in
Athletics.
USA, they don't do that. The athletic, the assistant, the
Teaches
offensive,
class.
defensive coach, they'll teach one class, that's it. The other ones are athletic classes.
Yes, sir.
They're the ones that go to the middle school, they're the ones that do the high school, offense, defensive coach, and the head coach for football. 'Cause,
We can go
work
do
with
all
it,
that.
yeah.
We'll bring all this
Yeah,
back. This is
that we
good.
need to look at, and
All
again,
right, sir.
is that, I like to see where the evaluations are to all the programs.
Coaches.
have that.
Programs that have been 2-3 years and haven't produced.
Yes, sir.
What are we doing? Those programs need to go on, because the stipend is a good stipend for all our people, they deserve it.
Yes, sir.
But we need to have those, we have to have those, this is what you, this is
Hold
what you-
coaches
what
accountable.
you're getting, but you gotta perform. If not, we need to
We'll get
evaluate.
somebody
And
else.
that, I think it's
And hold the
long
coach,
overdue.
hold every coach accountable for what they're doing as a coach.
Right, but I like to see that, and I can't see
I
their
haven't-
evaluation, but I
No,
like
we
you
can
all to look
prepare a
into
little
the
summary,
evaluations. And that's all I gotta say.
Well, if this is going to be a luxury item that is no, I mean, it used to be a luxury item, is no longer going to be a luxury item. This is what is needed as part of our game plan. So let's push it forward, but let's keep our eyes and ears open on everything else that's going on around. And it's not because we're trying to get any gotcha moments in there. It's that we truly, I think we have the people that we can get the success that we want and we need, and I think it's from a management issue. This kind of eases it up a little bit, and going back to what I know what Mr. Garcia was trying to say, and it's not that we're trying to compare it with UISD or anything, but if they're doing something right over there, I want to be man enough to say we need to put it over here because we're doing it wrong over here.
Oh,
So
no
if
doubt.
they're getting to have the assistant coaches spend more time in their planning processes for their athletic programs,
Let's do it.
and not that we don't need them in the classroom, and that might be the case, and they might be doing something different, but if we're spending all our time in the classroom, and that's how they have the edge on that side, then we need to figure out a way and sort of adjust and get motivated to get those successes on this side.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Garcia.
Okay, one more little item that I just noticed. On LISD, we're paying the stipends on 10 extra days, right?
No, sir. That's the
What
only one
does
that
this
we're looking,
10
the
day
only one that
mean?
we're looking at 10 days, Mr. Martinez, is just the assistant tennis.
As a
That's it.
plus
That's the
10.
only one. That's
Okay,
the
what-
only one.
I'm sorry, go ahead and,
That's the only one. All our coaches, all our head coaches that work fall sport or spring sport, they all have 15 days. All of them.
so
except
what
for
does
the-
this 10 day mean?
The only difference is the one that doesn't get it is our assistant tennis coach. That's the
Okay.
only one that's different.
And then the person
United
in,
UISD's assistant tennis coach has 15 days. But
Okay.
like Dr. Moreno was saying, our assistant coach makes 4,600, whereas UISD's coach makes 4,500. So it's a $100 difference in our favor, but the number of days is what she was
yeah,
talking
the
about.
number of days, you should have prorated it. Might have been a little bit
You
better.
want that to match, and you want us to pick the cost up of that.
Yes.
Yes, but it should.
And
I
and we
understood.
would expect that during the summer, they're working with students.
Sure.
Like, it's
That's
not
correct,
to
ma'am.
inventory and to keep track of stuff, it's to work
All
with
year
the
long,
kids
ma'am.
during the summer.
It's got to be all year long.
One more real quick. one thing, if
Yes,
you
sir.
don't mind. Why is it that in football, and I coach football, that coaches, assistant coaches, everybody has 15 days, but basketball, only the head coach, their assistants don't have 15 days. Girls basketball, 15 days, but their assistants don't have 15 days. Why is that?
That's Mr. Garcia, to share with you, that's the way it's been for a while. I don't know if it's any
Because
different
that
at
sport
UISD. but-
doesn't start till later.
But
And
it goes
what
back. It goes back to what we say. They're working the summer. They're working before school. They're working
To-
all that. They're there.
To answer
So
your
the
question,
coaches that they're voluntarily, where they can have the 15 days. A lot of this thing that we wouldn't have to worry. They're there anyway during the 15.
but you're talking about the
Volleyball
assistant
has-
coaches, right?
Does volleyball have the volleyball not even on here? Where is it?
The volleyball
With the
is.
45
because
15 days, yeah.
They've already started their program.
I see the back.
So they get 15 days. Volleyball's there.
That's
Yeah,
a
I just saw
45.
it. Does UISD get 15 to assistant coaches?
I would have to look at that, sir.
Let's look at that and make a little more study on
Just
that.
make sure that we get them across the board.
You have it
They do.
on the last page if you want to look at
Yeah, I
it.
see it. They do. They do.
They do.
Next item?
Thank you, Mr. President. The second
That's
thing,
the
Thank you,
basketball assistant.
yeah. Thank you, Mr. Dominguez. We appreciate your leadership on that. That brings us to our discussion on salary proposals. First of all, I'd like to welcome Mr. Ernest Davila and the members of the Texas State Teachers Association who have joined us in our budget workshop. We appreciate their time and effort, and we know that they're very interested to know what the board finally decides on this. We have provided, our Office of Human Resources has provided an update based on our last conversation. That includes what I want to call for the public two options. One is basically, if we talk about the teacher salary schedule first, you have one that has a $1,000 increase for each teacher plus a step increase. And then option two, based on the recommendations of the board, is a $1,500 increase plus a step. So that's where we're at for the teachers. And we're asking for either 1%, 2%, or 3%, depending on the will of the board, for paraprofessionals and administration.
So
Dr. Moreno?
I wanted us to consider the 1,500 for the teachers and whatever percentage, because I think it's very difficult to compare what we're doing when we're doing numbers for one and percentages for another group.
Right?
So I'd like to suggest that we consider that whatever percentage we give to those that are not on the teacher scale, that it be limited to whatever we gave the teachers. Whatever, if we gave the teachers 1,500, then that those increases be limited to 1,500, so that we continue to strengthen our base.
You're talking about for administration and paraprofessionals?
Yes, in other words, if we say we're going to, I'm just going to say, if we say we're going to give it 2%, and that 2% represents under 1,005, well, they get the full 2%. If that 2% represents
Over.
1,100, well, 1,600, say, then they
They
would
get
only get the
1,500.
1,005.
I love that idea.
So we are still supporting our teacher space skills.
The only, that sounds great.
If there's any excess, if there's, whatever the excess is would come to the bottom. I'm saying that, so whatever
If you
that,
save money, you give me the 75,000 back.
We'll get money for the athletic, don't worry.
well, whatever those excesses are, once that's calculated and that doesn't go over the 1,500, we'll put it back at the bottom?
Well, there, it
Meaning
won't be,
because
It just never-
those that,
It just
if we're
won't.
already at 950
it'll
for
just help
minimum
us
wage.
afford everything.
Huh?
Right.
It'll help us afford it.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's an
sure
idea.
about how you would calculate all that for each employee, but I understand the concept.
And I also want to add that I support the midpoint, that we give our increases based on midpoint, because that also has a tendency to help the bottom bracket.
How will this affect TASB's tables of salary?
No, our salary schedule now is built for the Board of Trustees to annually decide if you want to adjust it or not. And if the board chooses to make any adjustments, then the way our current salary schedule works is we would implement those changes. So
And
it's
how does that-
possible. The salary schedule that TASB did was never intended for it to stay frozen. It's just the concepts would stay frozen. But if we wanted to make adjustments, we could do that.
I think it adds more flexibility to any year that we want to adjust at every single level that we're talking about right now.
Sí, pero this is
And
going to throw out
Dr.
TASB
Nelson,
completely.
if,
No,
Yeah.
the idea is still the same because you're still getting the midpoints that
If
Dr.
if
Moreno
we're
talked
adding a step there for the teachers, and the minimum step happens to be 200, then that 200 would be added to the 1,005 for
Right.
the maximum.
But see, this concept, please listen to this, David. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Mr.
Go ahead.
President.
No, just one quick question here. Where in the agenda do we cover the military? Remember, we talked about them, so I want to make sure that we
You
don't
talking about
forget.
for ROTC? You talking about for ROTC?
Yeah, the amount
That's
that we
already been
contribute
included in the budget for next year.
to the programs. That'll be covered somewhere.
It's already, it's in the request for additional funds, but we've already built it for that program,
So you
$30,000.
let us know how much it is and all that.
In what? ORTC?
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're under
Okay.
the,
Thank you.
Yes.
in that area.
Mr. Garcia?
No, I agree with Mr. Valdez on that.
Okay.
One comment though on the issue of, we still don't know, this is all based on getting a minimum amount from the state this year? Still
Well,
don't know what that dollar figure is.
that's true,
So
and
we can't commit to a plan. We can commit to a plan, but I mean, in order for us to balance, we need to make sure that we know exactly what we're gonna be getting over there. So if and the way I was looking at these numbers, if we get the minimum amount, we're covered. I mean, we're adjusting here and there to try and balance our budget, right?
Well, Mr. Garza, if I can respond to that, the truth is, I understand what you're saying, but for the record, I don't think we should wait till the legislative makes their final decisions on appropriations and finance templates. We're asking the board to make a decision on salaries before that. We fully recognize that they could come back a little high or a little low on what you approve. If they come back a little low, well, then we're going to have to go cut. If they come back a little high, well, then
Like an ad?
no. But what I'm saying is that it would just help us take care of all the other
That's what I'm saying.
needs that we
You're
have.
plugging
So,
my number that I'm thinking in my mind is that we plug in the worst case scenario that so that we can proceed with the balancing processes, because if we wait till the very end and we're not going to be getting the numbers or the monies that we deserve down here, where are we going to get those extra monies? Discretionary fund?
I mean, I can, no.
I also,
Everything,
We'll tell everybody in here that we're, sorry, Ernest.
Mr. Garcia?
everything that I've read so far, because I'm keeping track on what's going on, I don't think we're going to see less money. I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see more money, and I think that's across the state. They're seeing that you're not going to see what we got. You're going to see more money. So if we can base ourselves on the numbers that we have,
Worst case.
this is what we got last year. I think you're pretty much safe, and you might have a lot of money. Not a lot of money, but you will have money left over, a little where we can place in other positions to fulfill those things that we shouldn't have to pay for out of discretionary, that should be paid through the district.
Yes, sir.
To look at that.
Ms.
Ms. Moreno?
Martinez, and one more thing. I don't think we should be waiting till August the 27th to approve our budget.
Okay.
And the proposed tax rate, so maybe you can look at that schedule
Moving
and
it
see
up.
if you can move it up. a
Early
little bit.
August. The key to that, I mean, I think those are all great ideas, but we need to get approval on salaries. And I can tell you, we're watching the legislative session hourly, 3 times today, Senate and House, and it's exciting. But we need to make some decisions on salaries. You mentioned United. We've tried to have conversations with them, but they're not committing. And I would be willing to say I don't think they're going to do what we're saying. I don't think a step plus 1,500 plus 2% for administration, 3% for paraprofessionals. I don't know. I can't see it. So having said that, if we could get approval on that, I think it's a win for our staff. We've had the conversation with those who represent our employees. They would feel like that is a clear win. We're not sure how we're going to balance it, but we anticipate the legislative session will come in and help. And so we'll be able to come in June with a plan to cover all of this. But what we need in the month of May, if we can, is approval on what you want to do. And the other point I wanted to make to Dr. Moreno's point is about that midpoint. If we start calculating raises for paraprofessionals and professionals based on the midpoint, and we did Dr. Moreno's excellent idea of capping to approximately $1,500 or however it works for the teachers, then I just need everybody to understand how that's going to work, because that midpoint actually would have got people, we have people who will get $1,800, $1,900 depending on what percentage this board approves. So it's all a great idea, and it's good conversations, moving it up. I know that'll be tough for our finance department, but they've shown resiliency and that they can respond to whatever timeline the board wants to stipulate.
Okay, just back on what I was mentioning a few minutes ago. So we have regular salaries for teachers and regular yearly increments according to their salary,
Steps.
according to the years and so forth.
Yes.
Above that, everybody's getting $1,000 or whatever we decide. So next year, another 1,000, that'll be 2,000 above that. And last year's 1,000, so now there should be about 2,000 or 3,000 above the table, right? It'll keep on increasing because of our situation with our district, okay? Just so we understand.
Right, you're saying we gave 1,000 plus a step last year?
Well, how much did we give last year?
I think it was 1,000 plus a step. any case, this year, $1,500 plus a step. The point that I take from your comments is two things. Number one, very respectfully, our staff deserves it. We want to be real clear. But we also, in that same breath, we got to communicate that that's not a property right every year. So it's not going to be $1,500 plus a step plus 2% plus 3% every year. It just so happens that this year, if that's the will of the board, we think we can bring a balanced budget. If we couldn't, we'd tell you now. But we can. What we don't want to do is wait till July or August to try and do that and not really know what that number is going to be. But it now comes out to, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's like $4.6 million in salary adjustments. That's significant. Last year's was approximately $9 million in adjustments. So for us as a staff, we'll take $4 million any day of the week. And we really believe our staff, if our teachers knew they were getting $1,500 plus a step, our paraprofessionals knew they were getting 3%, and our professionals knew they were getting 2%, with the asterisks that Dr. Moreno has put in to make sure that we're being responsible about this. We're ready to do that. We just need a vote by this board. So,
Mr. Garcia?
I'm glad you said that. It's not a standard that we want to do every year, but I think that
Yes, we are.
until we're where we need to be.
sure.
I've always, when we got onto the board, I thought we were behind in our teacher pay raise. And I think till we're healthy enough to say, you know what, they're getting what they deserve. I think we're not there. We're almost there, but we're not there yet. I think once we get there, then we'll be all right. I think we've been behind. I think we're catching up,
Yes,
and through your leadership and the leadership of this board. So I'm glad that they're actually doing that to get where we need to be.
Now, it needs to be said, though, just like your conversation about coaches, I mean, for the record, and with all due respect, because
And they need to make
I'm
them
on our
scores.
side of our staff, but we have some scores that have dropped 16 points, and they're getting a raise.
Right.
So I'm all for it. They deserve it. I understand the challenge, but I'm just saying you can't have that conversation about girls softball and not have it about 8th grade math.
Yeah, but
I mean, you kind of got to.
It goes back to, I said, a curriculum, and I've said it time after time. If our teachers are not producing, then we need to hold them to that standard, and we need to go another direction. And I know,
we're not
and
doing
that's
that.
I will not defend a teacher that does not do the work, because at the end of the day, I consider that, in my opinion, child abuse, because that kid is not learning. And if that's happening, I know as long as we're doing everything and we're giving that teacher every possible tool to get that kid to where it needs to be, then we're doing our job. If we can't get there, then we need to go another direction with that teacher.
You know,
And I think they support that. But
You know, we've got teachers who say they're not staying a minute after school. And so for me, I'm kind of like, well, I understand everybody has things to do and family commitments, and we definitely are a family-first district, but, you know, it's the same conversation you had about athletics. And so if we have, you know, and I mean all the way up to the chief academic officer, for the record. I mean, and down to every teacher. So if you have 16-point drop in reading, then the question is, what are you doing about that? And I know Bobby can show where people have flied out to the campuses. They've come on Saturdays. People who are supposed to be teaching adults are teaching students. And so we have that at the central office that shows that we're doing everything we can, that time is not the issue. But I don't know if we can say that all the way down to our low-performing schools. And before we start giving $4.6 million in salaries, I really would challenge our instructional team to ensure that that's what we're doing. So it does me no good to have my 7th grade ELA dean working from sun up to 10 o'clock at night if the 7th grade reading teacher's not going to do it.
Well,
Mr. Valdez?
the region teacher.
Well, I think we're now into the philosophy of winning and losing, you know, and that can get pretty
Sensitive.
tacky
Sure.
because coaches can only deal with what they've got in front of them, and coaches don't make the points. I'm not saying, you know, whose fault it is, but it's students that do that. And then coaches will probably come and say, well, give me different players then if you want me to succeed. Because that's what they do in the professionals, where people get paid for succeeding. They say, well, I don't want this player here, I want another one. Because
Sure.
I can't say. Again, we don't want to go into that. We have to go back to what is the purpose of athletics. at the high school level, at the lower levels, at the
Middle school.
school districts. And the issue really is this: when you have a coach that is really not producing the person himself, not the scores, but that the coach is not out there when he should be, or that he's not really putting forth the efforts that he needs. That's a different issue. Okay, that's a different issue. But I wouldn't put the scores in there because, see, in every game, somebody's going to lose. Okay? I remember in Mexico City, at one time, people were very angry because a team from Honduras beat the Mexican team some years back. And they talked about treason and betrayals and all this mumbo jumbo. I said, well, isn't it possible that the other team was better? No. They almost scoffed me.
Mr. Garza?
Yeah, well, the philosophy here is the same in sports as it is in the classroom. The whole idea behind it is that in sports, as in anything else, if you put yourself on a 5-year graph and you see improvement every year, and there's no problem. It's not about the wins or losses at that point. It's about that you're showing gradual improvement and you're headed in the right direction.
Sure.
But when we stagnate and flatline, and I agree with you, there's some campuses that are doing that. I mean, and this isn't a bad word. This isn't taboo to talk about. This is something that we really need to look at face to face.
Exactly.
And the whole idea is that in the campuses that I've gone to that are very successful, everybody in that campus has bought into the idea of success. There's no excuse. There's no, well, I have to go and do this or I have to go and do that. Everybody stays behind. And the idea is, like they said, there's no shortcut to success. There is no shortcut. If I want to be a good basketball team, you have to put the time into it.
Sure.
If you want to be a good teacher, you have to put the time into it. And it's unfair that, everybody in the world, and I defend it. Hey, I have 7 sisters. We're all teachers. I have my wife's teaching, and I hear what other people say. Well, they got the summers off, and they got this. Doesn't matter. That's not the issue. The issue is that what you do in the time that you're there matters the most. What are you going to do from the time that you get there to the time that you leave? Is it quality time, or is it quantity? Those are the type of things, and those are the questions that we need to ask ourselves. But I'll tell you one thing that we've been trying to do up here is we're trying to create a good team, a great team. Trying to get everybody to work together to work for one common goal is to make this the premier district in the state of Texas.
Sure.
And the only way we're going to do that is if we work together. If we don't work along with what we're trying to do, if TSTA and all you people are not together with staff, and the staff is not with us, and the superintendent is not with us, and all of us here are not working together, we're just wasting our time.
Yes,
We got to confront all those hard questions face to face. If we're not doing our job, it's not that we're trying to insult anybody or we're trying to attack any one individual person. It's we're saying, what are we doing wrong and how do we fix it, and let's move on.
Sure.
That's what we need to do.
I think
But the leadership is also very important. If you don't have a motivator, if you don't have even from up here, from the
If that didn't
Central
motivate you, what I
staff.
just said right now?
Nope. Because you're blaming only the teacher.
No, I'm not blaming-
You
I'm
need to
telling
have the
everybody.
principals to come in and set up a good program. You need to have the directors here to do something and keep on evaluating it constantly, so to be able to get them to work in line.
Create a
Okay?
team.
And if you don't have the principal that has her eyes or his eyes open all the time, checking every teacher, working around them, then you don't have, even though some of the teachers want to do it. Mr. Garcia?
I think
It's
I'm sorry,
real
Mr.
quick. I think it goes to what we just said about athletics teachers. We've talked about it in curriculum, that it all starts with the principal, as Mr. Martinez said. But when you go back and you have a school that's, like you said, Dr. Nelson, you have 16, it's dropped 16 points here and there, and then you go and ask, okay, let's go in and start looking into the school, and you look at all the evaluation, and all the evaluations are perfect evaluations, then that's a lack of, that's the, Mr. Martinez
Lack of
said,
leadership.
a lack of leadership. You know what, I'm going through the motion, do it, but you're gonna hold everybody accountable for what they're doing. I've said that time after time, set up programs where we can work with our teacher to get them better at what they're doing, because everybody has that room for growth,
Sure.
to learn a little more. And if that doesn't work, then we need to go to another step. But we've talked about that because we've seen a drop. Okay, show me the evaluations, or talk about the evaluations, and they're perfect. So how can you have a perfect evaluation, but that teacher dropped 17 points? So that's what we need to do what Mr. Martinez said. That starts with the principal and administration down to make sure that we have the best teacher possible. Or what are we doing to get that teacher where they need to be? Same thing in the coaching does. You know what? You're going to get your best coaches out there. You're going to do what you can to train them. If you give them all the tools, they can't. Everybody can win. The USD, you know what? From the south to the north, to the kids that struggle, that have to walk to school and have to, you know what? They go home. They don't have light. They don't have electricity. They're still going to school and they're performing. They won a district championship at LBJ. And I'm knocking LBJ because what? They worked hard. So we should be able to compete with everybody at all our schools. Basketball does it. Cross country does it time after time. Every program should at least compete.
Dr.
I
Moreno?
also want to add that we have to be better at interviewing because, we do get a lot of new teachers, and at $47,000 starting salary, we're going to have more applicants than before. And having said that, we have an opportunity to select the very best. But if we don't know our interview process and we don't ask the right questions, we may be missing on those opportunities, and it takes us longer to work with those new teachers if we didn't select the very best.
Point well taken.
Next item, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just real quick on the pay plan. I want to commend Mr. David Garza and his team because it's been a very tedious process where we've been working on this for over a year now. With our TASB pay plan update, and we're not completed yet. But we have, our Office of Human Resources has begun having the conferences with each employee who has turned in an appeal and going over the results of the appeal with them in a one-on-one conference, inviting any staff member who is not satisfied with the explanation. We're inviting them to come and meet with me, so that I can understand their concerns and really take a stop, look, and listen and review what it is that they're saying is not being considered. So we'll be continuing that through the end of May, and we anticipate that we'll go forward and have a conversation about it next year if we need to revisit that process. But there have been some that have been changed, have received changes, and there's been some that have been denied. So it's a little bit of both, and I just encourage everyone to be patient and go through the conference and communicate what you feel like needs to be said, and we will continue to work through it in a way that our teachers and our staff deserve. Any comments or questions, Mr. President?
Nope.
If
Go
there's
ahead,
not,
next
may I
item.
proceed? The last thing we wanted to really talk about, and I'm glad members of TSTA stayed to hear this, is the legislative update. I had the opportunity to have a lunch the other day with members of TSTA. As many of you know, I also spoke at the Senate Public Education hearing in March. And these conversations with TSTA, conversations at the state level, all I can say is that we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. And there's, in the area of accountability and assessment, there's a host of legislation coming. And what I wanted to say in front of our colleagues and friends from our local association, and you see some of it at this level. But what happens is, and I really would challenge us to rise above this, but you see things like, for example, one of the things we know is going to happen is there's going to be opportunity school districts. It's already come out of the House. It came out of the Senate back in March. Okay, so now it just came out of the House, I think, yesterday. And this concept is saying that if you're low performing 3 years in a row, you no longer report to the Board of Trustees and the superintendent. You're going to be operated by a state district. And so I don't mind being quoted as saying that can't happen in LISD. We cannot have campuses that we're not responsible for here because Austin can't help us fix our situation. But what I don't want us to do, and I hope you appreciate us saying this, is that if you watch, you can watch all of this online, but it's real simple. Everyone wants to blame the teacher. Everyone wants to blame the classroom teacher, and we're all for accountability. I agree, and I think teachers do have to share that, but not by themselves. That's why when I talk about accountability for performance, I always include central office and the chief academic officer. Because if we have a drop in scores, of course I could talk to the middle school teachers in reading. Of course they have to share that responsibility, but so do we, including me, including every parent, every household. We all are responsible for student achievement. So it doesn't really matter if they call it A through F, if they call it meet standards and not meet standards, if they call it acceptable, recognize. What we got to do is push our kids more. We got to get more of our kids to get as much college as they can get. The new standard today is that you get as much college as you can get before you graduate from high school. And you can't get zero. That's no longer, if you graduate from high school today and you don't have college credit, people are saying you're not college material. And so that's a paradigm shift, my friends. Moving on to another topic is in safety and security. Our chief of police has done a great job in monitoring what we call an open carry legislation, and how that people are going to be allowed to carry weapons in the public. And we're not here to speak for or against it, but can you imagine the situation that creates for our public schools? I mean, we can't have people walking with guns in our public schools. So we're watching that legislation very closely. Truancy has been decriminalized. So we have justices of the peace right now who their whole court is truancy. And that is no longer going to be a criminal situation. So we already have plans to try and get kids to school with home visits and interventions and parental involvement and things like that. But I just wanted to mention it in our legislative update. Finally, but certainly not least, there is, I was reading today, it's about 60 pages in what's called property tax legislation. And I don't want to be inappropriate or unprofessional here, but Dr. Moreno, you probably would love every page of that. I mean, it's a penny here and a half a penny there, and it's depending on your INS and your M&O, and some of it's in the House, and it all has, Ms. Ayala knows it, because depending on what is approved, it will change our funding templates. But I just wanted to say that we're watching it. I'm proud of Ms. Ayala, Ms. Ramirez, Ms. Martinez, who had a religious event tonight, our chief of police. We're watching it, and we'll continue to update the board on how graduation committees is something that we're looking at. That may happen between now and graduation. And so I'm just real proud of the work we're doing, because every day it changes. But if you watch it like we're watching, stuff has been through the Senate. Now it's coming out of the House Public Education Committee and going to the House for a vote. So it passes in the House, it already passed in the Senate, then it goes to the governor for signatures, and it's going to be a change for every classroom teacher up through our board of trustees. So that's our legislative update for
Let me
today.
ask you something on the legislative part, and I don't know if you mentioned it right now. There was, what is it, the House Bill 273 on attendance?
274.
274, on whether we or not we're going to be allowed to take more kids to court because it criminalizes them?
Right.
Something to that extent?
Yes. You won't be able to take them to court.
That you won't take.
Right.
Does that increase our ability to, or what are our repercussions internally? Do we go into a hearing officer status?
Well, the conversations that we've had, they are asking it to be a local decision.
Okay.
And so, yeah, some of your ideas about creating our own little court system and working, that is something we support. Another bill on safety and security, I didn't get a chance to talk to the chief about it yet, but there's a bill right now. It's already out of the Senate and it's to the House, and I know someone trying to get it passed. They want every police officer, every certified police officer to have a body camera. And every time they do something, I forgot, make a move or pull the whistle or whatever, the body camera comes on. And so that's fine, but it's not funded. It's an unfunded mandate. So I'm sure it would be helpful. It would probably alleviate a lot of legal action that happens on use of force and things like that. But man, we probably need to go ahead and start calculating what that would cost for us to get in compliance with those types of safety and security initiatives. But, you know, we'll follow up on the truancy as well.
Can we go back real quick, Mr. Martinez? When are we, the teachers, what are it called? The payment plan, the appeals and all that, when are we're supposed to have an answer by March. Have we done that already?
Well, yes. I mean, we've gotten out of 274 appeals, we've gotten, I want to say 65 of them signed, and here's where they're at from TASB. And we've started meeting with those. Everybody's getting a 30-minute conference, though. So they kind of got to go through the process. I'd anticipate it'll take us through May to get through everyone's individual conference. So we're working through it. It's not gonna be done by May 1 or anything, but we started it back in March, yes.
Just for the sake of argument, can we get a I don't want to say a deadline, but I'm sure there's
Is it
all these people
dragging?
want an answer,
Yeah.
and I know we've been saying this a lot. I don't know if we're still trying to figure some of these things out internally here, but maybe by our regular board meeting this month, just something we can get closure on this more than anything.
Well, here's what I want to say that. First of all, we feel like there is closure on it.
Oh.
We've explained it to the board. We've told the board the process. We've explained that the process could go as late as the end of May. It was this board who respectfully told the public that it wasn't a vote or anything, but I heard from our board, several board members, that there shouldn't be appeals to the board on this, that we should go through our process. We should explain how we came to our decision. If people are still dissatisfied, they should come meet with the superintendent. And all of that, Mr. Garza and Mr. Garcia, that'll take us probably through June for me to do all the meetings that that the staff deserves. And if they're still dissatisfied with my meeting, well, then of course they still have options. They don't end their options, but no, I sense there's people that want to come straight to the board. And we've talked about this in the month of February, we talked about this in the month of March, and this is the process that we're using.
Mr. Garcia?
You can go back probably to the tape in February. We did say that, but we also said that we need to come to a closure by the end of March. You all's responsible. We'll bring it to the board to explain exactly where we are so we can close it. It hasn't come to us. We're still pending. All that should have been done by the end of March, and now we're throwing it to May or June. But in February, we said we will meet with everybody, and we will have a final report on what our actions are going to be by the end of March.
Right, but we haven't got all the...
We're in May, and we haven't done what we said we're going to do by March.
Right.
If I remember correctly.
We did say that.
Yeah,
we did say that. We also clarified after that, but yeah.
Dr. Nelson, I know that we might decriminalize the truancy situation that we have, but we can still use the judicial system, adjust to the peace, and give them consequences from the schools, like the ISS and the other programs that we have.
We agree.
But they do carry, some validity, the judges, where they go in front of the judge and the judge, but then use some of the consequences that we have in the school and talk to the parents and ask them to do certain things. And we do have laws within the schools as to what we can do with truant students. And they can use those on our behalf. So I think it's important that we keep on using our judges.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's our plan, 100%.
Yes, please. Thank you. Anything else from the board?
Killing me, man.
If there's nothing else on the board, we're now adjourned. Thank you.
Really? You get cranking about 7:30 over there? Oh, I'll be by there.